Hello,
Hi
hello, hello,
everyone.
everybody. Welcome to Looking Back into the Future live stream. Probably the first ever live session. Shannon, correct me here. I'm not sure on Looking Back platform.
Um, in a
Maybe
while, I think.
I know it's been a minute for sure. On Looking Back platform, I think this is the first ever.
Oh,
But
for
on your
yes,
platform, maybe you've
yes.
had others. So I want to just take a minute to welcome every single person joining us on this live today. We are so excited. I'm super excited for some of the announcement we're going to be sharing today. Some Shannon has some little bit of stuff in an announcement for us today. Whilst we get into that, we are also going to be chit-chatting a little bit about what Shannon has been up to and a lot of things that we're going to be looking forward to under the Looking Back into the Future platform initiative that Shannon has put together. So as you all gather together, I just want to welcome you all. I can see Esther Spencer is here. I
Hi
can see our folks from
Esther.
the UK. Thank you for joining. Thank you,
Hi
thank you, thank you,
GC
thank you,
Paul.
everybody. Good to have you all here. And without wasting too much time, Shannon, let's just get right into it.
Sure.
Okay, so the main essence for this live stream is broken into three main things, right? And first thing is obviously everybody needs to know who Shannon is. Who is Shannon? Who are we? What are you doing? What are you up to? So we'll do that first, real quick. Secondly, we're going to go into just a little snippet into looking back into the future. I will call it looking back into the future 2.0 because we've had the past couple years to kind of get things going as we launch into the new season. And then thirdly, we'll wrap up with what a decade in Black history. And so that's pretty much the key three things we're going to touch on today. But if anybody has any question along the way, please feel free to drop it into the chat. I'm sure Shannon will be more than excited to respond to them. I'm just an anchor here today. I'm just a host holding the fort on behalf of Looking Back into the Future. Just for background, my name is Solomon Oyeniran. I'm Shannon's husband, and I know she likes to call me Honey Bunny, but whatever. I'm Solomon, and I'm here with with Channon Oyeniran. She is the founder, the initiator, the visionary of Looking Back into the Future. But a quick step back, as you most have been following us online, or those who are just joining, we have an education platform, learn and teaching platform we created called OES Education, which is more or less the parent company myself and Shannon put together. It anchors our books, anchors our learning and teaching materials. We also publish most of our books on that area. And then on top of that now, we have specialties. And Shannon's area of specialization and core is in terms of the historical education, historical knowledge, and more contemporary in Canada specifically. So she takes care of that. And the whole Looking Back into the Future is a subset of our OES Education platform, which Shannon has been running amazingly for the past almost a decade now, Shannon, but we'll get into
hmm
that. Anyway, so that's the whole idea about looking back into the future. But I'll pass it over to Shannon now. For people who are don't assume everybody knows you. You're popular, you know that. But don't assume everybody knows you. For people who are just joining for the first time, who don't know who you are, you want to just give a little bit of a short snippet of who you are and how the whole looking back into the future initiative came together.
Okay, I will start with that. So hopefully everyone knows me by now in some way or form, but if you don't, my name is Channon Oyeniran. I am a historian and I specialize in Black history. Um, as you can see, my lovely husband is here, mom to two boys. And, in terms of career, I'm also doing my PhD right now. I'm a PhD candidate at Queen's University. I'm an author, a speaker, a podcast host, a curriculum writer, a consultant, all of the above. And it all relates to Black history, specifically Black Canadian history. So that's a little bit about me and what I've been doing for the last couple of years, more than a couple of years, in terms of career and life in general. So yeah.
And so, yeah, apparently, as many of you already know, I'm originally from Africa and
Nigeria
Nigeria to be precise.
specifically, be
Yes,
specific.
Nigeria to be precise. And I haven't been born there, grew up there, and I met this young lady 2010. And then she started telling me about a transatlantic slave trade. And I was like, wait, what are you talking about? lo and behold, she started to teach me what even I didn't know about. And I was fascinated. I was blown away. Maybe that was the beginning of the journey. But I'm so grateful that we're doing this journey together. And again, I just want to thank everyone that is joining. I can see Marsha just joined as well. Want to thank you all for taking a minute to spend some time with Looking Back into the Future and Shannon. And so in a snippet, one of Shannon's project focused on what is placemaking, what do for immigrants or people that are relocated into Canada, how do they feel and call this country home? And what is the contextualization or the concept of home, placemaking, community within the Canadian context? And so she's really narrowed that down, more specifically studying Black community. And as you will see all across the various things she's done, those things begin to sprinkle out here and there. But having done that, it seems that a couple of things have been changing and looking back into the future, Shannon. And it will be amazing to kind of give people a little bit of context. What is Looking Back into the Future 2.0? What should people be looking forward to as we go into this new era of your program?
Well, before I answer that, I'll
Mm-hmm.
take a step back and give a little history about the Looking Back into the Future program. So this started at the end of
Mm-hmm.
2015, and I planned a conference in literally maybe 2 months, called the Looking Back into the Future Black History Month Conference. And myself and my core team, we came up with this name. Sometimes people are like, "What is that name about? What is it, all about, and what does it mean?" So it's really realizing that obviously we're in the present moment, and everything that we see now and how things are has a connection and has roots in the past, in history, right? So really trying to highlight the importance of history and its direct connection and link to the present and also to the future, right? What we want to see the future. History kind of dictates our present. So we really came up with a program and a name that kind of talks about that. So we're looking back, right,
Mm-hmm.
at history and what happened, and then bringing that and looking at that and looking at past events into the present and into the future, because that we have the power to kind of change things for the good, for the future. So that's kind of where the name came from, a little play on words.
Mm-hmm.
And then we hosted the first annual Looking Back into the Future Black History Month conference in February of 2016.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been a journey.
Yeah.
We're going to be celebrating the ninth annual conference on February the 24th. But to answer your question, that
Mm-hmm.
new revamp, it's not really a revamp per se, more of a refocus of looking back into the future as we have entered into 2024. Really just trying to align things strategically and really become more focused on some of our core programs. So obviously I mentioned the conference is one of our core programs. I also hosted in the past movie screenings, right? And this is hearing from the community and those who would come to the conference, some things that they would like to see. There were a lot, and obviously I can't do all of them yet. But one of the main things that kept coming up was like movie screenings, right? Like
Right.
movies about the Black community,
Mm-hmm.
again, specifically in Canada. So a few years ago, I hosted a movie screening on the documentary Journey to Justice
Right.
about the Black civil rights movement right here in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
That, when we hear civil rights movement, we automatically think the United States and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And yes, that happened, but we had our own struggle and kind of movement here with some key individuals who really fought for change.
Right.
So yeah, the movie screening is another aspect of the Looking Back platform and program, and excited that we should be bringing that back this year, which is
Mm-hmm.
wonderful. So more details about that later on.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just really wanting to connect more with the community
Right.
and kind of dig deep down in community and education and really make the Looking Back into the Future platform a community hub and a place where people can come and get knowledge
Mm-hmm.
and stay connected to each other in the
Right.
community. Another aspect of the Looking Back program that I've been doing for about 3 years now is the Black to Canada podcast, which again speaks about Black Canadian history, both in the past and what's happening now, and speaking to different guests about the Black experience in Canada. So just kind of relaunching that, revamping that as well. Season 3 should be out sometime next month. So those are some of the core programs of the Looking Back into the Future program
Right.
on a whole,
Right.
and just kind of just trying to narrow down and align things a bit more. So not a relaunch or not a revamp, just the kind of realigning and just really digging down deep into our strategic goals and focuses.
Right. Amazing. But just off the record, and I know this is not part of the script, but you're a mother of 2 boys,
Yes.
2 strong boys.
Oh.
You are a PhD candidate,
yes,
speaker, you are a teaching assistant in the university, you are the wife of a pastor, to put it in context, and you're pastor Mrs. You're a mentor to so many people. You're already looking back into the future platform. The other day, one school called you to come speak in their school. Please, how are you managing all of this together? How do you, how do you put it together?
You listing all those things makes my head spin. I don't know. The strength and the grace that God gives me every day to just kind of get through each day and do what I have to do, and obviously supportive family and friends and just people who are there for me and want to see me succeed. It kind of all comes together for me to take it day by day, because if I start looking ahead, then
but not to say I've not been doing it in private, but we really appreciate all of your hard work, your tenacity. You inspire all of us, and I hope as many who are listening to this too also be inspired to go afterward whatever has been in their heart, their vision, and their plans. But I said that was a segue. But back to looking back into the future, thinking about it on a holistic level. I hear you call out something earlier when you were talking about it, and this buzzword is common nowadays, where people are saying, forget about Black history, we want to start talking about Black futures, right? But I think just reflecting on some of your comments here, it's important to note that it's not just future as a way, or yes, the future is going to be created, but I'm really worried about people who always, in quotes, say, forget about the past. It's true, the past might have been ugly, the past might not have been the best story, might not be the best narratives, but the truth of the matter, not only even looking back at the future, but even in life in general, I think the ideal thing to do is to learn from the past instead of throwing away the past, right? So the idea of let's just throw away the past, forget about the past, and start talking about Black futures, maybe that should be the way to go. I think I agree with you. It's about learning from the past, taking the core messages, the core learnings, the core experiences, mixing that together with what is available today, which is current affairs, and together we use that to develop and design a future that's better for every single individual. And for your role specifically, you're focusing on the experiences, the lived experiences. I know one of your core focuses were Black life, as where the experiences and the interconnectivity of their lifestyle with police or law enforcement, how they're integrating themselves within the community and where they're residing, and for the pressure and the forces, including how they get jobs and their livelihood, and how that influence not only them but their family and people that also live within the same environment with them. And so I think it's really important what you're doing here, and particularly highlighting knowledge of history, which this is the next thing we're actually going to be talking about. In the past 10 years, can you just, because we're beginning to focus on the decade or the year of decade, I don't know what that UA policy is. Please remind us when you talk about it in a minute. But can you guys, because there's a lot that has happened in the past 10 years. And I will call it contemporary history because there's a lot that has been happening historically. But I just wanted to narrow our focus to the past 10 years. What history has been made? What has happened within the Black community? What are the core things you feel as an historian and an expert within this industry that you can talk about the past decade? What a decade in Black history.
Oh, that's a big question.
Let me grab my chair. Where's my water?
Let me try and go back.
Please grab your water, everybody. And if you have any questions, drop it then. Grab your water. Mrs. Channon Oyeniran is about to drop some
Oh
gems.
no, I'm trying to even break down what you said. So, starting with the decade for people of African descent,
Mm,
declared by the UN.
mm,
It's a decade to really narrow down and focus on the diverse and lived
mm,
experiences of Black people in the diaspora
mm,
and on the continent of
mm,
Africa, from 2015 all the way up till now, 2024.
mm,
So that's the decade that we're speaking about when we talk about that. And again, the UN, when they created this as well, right, wanted to just really focus on the Black community globally, right, and what are the challenges and the issues and the things that we're still facing as a community based on our
mm,
past, based on our history through the transatlantic
mm,
slave trade and enslavement and things like that.
mm,
So they really challenged the
mm,
world, right, in different countries to really take a deep look at
mm,
what that country's history is with Black people and those in the Black diaspora, and really try to see what can be done and what can be improved. So in 2018,
mm.
Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, officially recognized the decade, which in my opinion is 3 years too late, but that's okay. He acknowledged it. It's fine, right? And over, since then, there's been a lot of millions of dollars poured
Mm,
into the Black community, which, it's great, but have we really, my questions as, looking back in this decade, have we really
mm,
narrowed down and taken honest, deep look at
mm,
specifically Canada's role when
mm,
it comes to Black people?
mm,
Many people don't know that Canada had enslavement of Indigenous and Black people here, right here in Canada, for over
mm,
200 years, right? And
mm,
I still feel like there's not an honest, deep look and reckoning with that
mm,
past. Um, and again, that the decade is kind of meant to hopefully bring up those conversations. And I don't know how much of that we've done.
mm,
Definitely, there have been, different people, different organizations, individuals like myself, and so many others that have tried to bring light to this and have those conversations. And conversations have been had, definitely, but I don't know how much we've really, you know, dug deep and really have seen what we can do to
mm,
change things, because this is definitely, it's always hard work to try to dismantle systems that have been in place
mm,
for centuries that have oppressed our people, right? The Black
mm,
community. So it's always difficult, but the decade was meant, and hopefully still can be, used as a way to really dig
mm,
deep and look further.
mm,
Yeah, so that's the decade. We've since 2015, we're now in 2024.
mm,
We've seen so much. We've seen
mm,
so much brutality.
mm,
We've seen murder of Black people. And, we're closely tied to the United States.
mm,
Like, our histories are so entwined. They're literally, we border
mm,
them,
mm,
right? And on our different provinces and their states. So everything kind of that happens there, kind of spills over here and vice versa.
mm,
We've seen so much death and anti-Black racism and microaggressions and
mm,
bullying of Black, specifically women leaders, especially in the last couple months as well, in the last few
mm,
weeks. We've had the pandemic, we've seen the murder of George Floyd and Breonna
mm,
Taylor in 2020, and people here, Black people here in Canada, right? We've just seen so much um, death and trauma
mm,
in the last 10
mm,
years. Um, so dealing with that and seeing all of that, and then trying to move forward and continue to try to make things better for
mm,
ourselves and our families
mm,
and for generations
mm,
to come has definitely been a
mm,
lot. It's been tiring, it's been exhausting,
mm,
it's been hurtful, it's been just a lot, very frustrating, so
mm,
to speak, and to say the least. Um, but despite all of that, I still, for me as a person, try to have hope and try to, really try again, looking into the future, right? To try to work and do the work to just try and create a better future for not only myself, but my family and my community, whether it's here in Canada, or globally, to really try to have a strong presence so that we can move forward, right? And the work is ongoing. Again, not to say it's not exhausting, it is. But I think we've recognized, or I think I've recognized, I won't speak for anyone, but I think I've recognized that the work has to continue and nobody's going to do the work for us. And when I say work, like whether it's the education or standing up for ourselves or whatever the case may be, that work is not going to stop, so that we need to do it to keep pushing ahead. And again, not to say that I'm gonna like educate this person and take my time. No, we're in an age of Google, and there's books and there's podcasts, there's so many things out there that people can take the responsibility and learn for themselves. But I just think that, for me at least, I have to try to do my part in some small and little way to move things ahead for my community. And I think that's why the little things that I do hopefully make a difference. Looking back into the future, conference, the podcast, the articles I write, whatever it is, I just try to see those things as steps that people will get exposed to the truth and take what they've learned and spread it and share it and continue to learn themselves and grow as well. So I think I answered your question.
Absolutely.
Hopefully.
And let's look at key highlights now in terms of events of the past decade. Looking at it, I think we can remember Harriet Tubman, just doing counts in general. You can jump in here as well. I know Harriet Tubman, we did the 20th birthday.
Yep, so we did.
And
Harriet
Mary Ann Shadd, we also did the birthday.
Yeah.
We'll come back to those two. I'd like to speak on them in a minute. But I think the death of George Floyd probably was one of the main events in the past decade that has rippled throughout the world, specifically raising out protests and sit-ins, and obviously the emergence of the Black Lives Matter and the whole movement, and just all the events that have occurred. I mean, things that we can touch that have shifted or shaped history in the past decade. But I think the one of George Floyd actually has a significant effect in terms of policy changes, even though other things have been happening in the back. But I think that kind of shifted policy towards obviously racial equality in terms of employment and jobs, implementation of diversity and inclusion, education training in different organizations, both governmental and non-governmental. Can you kind of maybe reflect a little bit on that too, and then by extension, other key events that have occurred specifically within the last decade?
Yeah, so the murder of George Floyd, after that happened, and again, this is during COVID, the pandemic, we didn't know what was going on. And then to have to, literally see, right, a police officer have their neck on a Black man for almost 10 minutes, right? And to just see that, I think that really, and again, we've had cell phone video and footage of, the brutality and murder of other Black people before, but I don't know, something different about this, really kind of, I don't know, caught people's attention. I don't want to say that, but really did something to people as well. And yes, you're right. There were different policies and different organizations in place saying, okay, equity, diversity, inclusion, EDI or DEI, or the different terms that are there. We really need to implement that into our company and this, that, and that, which was great, right? Wonderful stuff. But I look at now how many of those same organizations and companies are continuing their work in EDI, right? Or was it just a fad to do in the moment because of what was happening, right? So that equity, diversity, inclusion work still continues, even though this happened almost 4 years ago with the murder of George Floyd, right? This work still continues, right? And we have to keep it up, right? Because it's not just a one-time thing, or I'll do it for a couple years, or I'll do it for a couple months. No, we have to really implement, equity, diversity, and inclusion, and really trying to dismantle anti-Black racism
Right.
into our everyday lives, whether it's the policies that we're
Mm,
the
mm,
organizations that we
mm.
have. It really needs to be a part of the culture. And I think, I don't know a number, so to speak. I'm sure there's reports, but I don't know how many of those same companies back in 2020 are still doing the
You
same work, or the same, or individuals.
literally just pointed touch on the point I was just ruminating in my head, because whilst you guys are historians, we are more in the corporate world. So I was just going to point on some of the data that is coming out that up till now, obviously everybody, yes, go implement diversity and inclusion, but up till now, there's no um, requirement across corporate bodies or institutions that is mandating it. So that's the first thing. There's no mandatory requirement for the DEI or whatever changes they've implemented to be enforced. And the second part of it is, even those that implemented it, there's no unified measuring system to measure or quantify or account for the implementation it made. And sadly, which is exactly what you're touching on, everything that has occurred through the event of George Floyd is unfortunately now being reversed. Again, the recent economic development is causing impact on people reducing or funding less of some of those equity
Mm-hmm.
initiatives that have been implemented during this era and the death of George Floyd. A lot of that has shifted again now, and so many people are now beginning to pull back or adjust some of the things they've implemented before. And so it's kind of interesting that a lot is still not yet in place as we expect. Obviously, some good advantages from there, which you know about, and you've been really active on this, which is the renaming of certain streets. I think that the death of George Floyd brought to light some things that we all didn't even think about before, including nomenclatures or monuments or cities or community structures that we put in place, and we name them after so-called slave drivers or slave owners. I think that has really emerged. I see many statues being pulled down or people breaking them, because now we now know, right, that, and so much reckoning within the communities that are now beginning to realize that there was certain things that were not done right. I don't know if you want to maybe reflect a little bit on the renaming of Dundas, which you had been involved in. I think these are some of the events that we're beginning to see in the decade that we're just wrapping up with. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so recently, Dundas Square, Young and Dundas Square, was voted to be renamed Sankofa Square, and this is in downtown Toronto. And it's as you mentioned, right? I won't go too much into it just for the sake of time. Right, but really trying to change, whether it's pulling down statues or names of people in the past who were, who owned enslaved Indigenous and African people, right? Changing those names and trying to make a difference. And again, that's all wonderful. Don't get me wrong. It's wonderful. It's great. To a certain extent, it shows me that people are at least kind of trying to look back at the history and who these people were, and trying to take a deeper dive into who these people were in their lives and what they were about. But I still think more can be done, right? It's not just about, okay, we rename Young and Dundas Square and then that's it, right? No, there's still so much work to be done to kind of dismantle these systemic barriers that have been in place since the beginning of time, right? There's so much work to still do concerning that. So renaming is great, but what are we going to do more? What more are we going to do? How are we going to further change things and get things to be equitable for everybody, for the Black communities across Canada, right? So yeah, that's what I would say about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's just been a lot that has happened over the last decade, as you mentioned, celebrating Harriet Tubman's 200th anniversary of her birth, Marianne Shad Carey, on October 9th of 2023, celebrating her 200th anniversary of her birth as well, and still just really trying to highlight and bring to the forefront their stories and what they went through and all that they went through to help us to be where we are today, right? And to bring their stories to light. So there's just been a lot that's happened in the decade. A lot of great stuff, a lot of things that can still be improved.
Mm.
And the Looking Back conference this year, the ninth annual, will definitely
Yes,
dig deeper
I want
into the
to talk
decade.
about that.
Yep, it
So
will.
what should we be looking forward to for the ninth edition? And for the record, every year for the past 9 years, Shannon has been hosting a community conference that brings all of us together within Durham and environment to learn, to network, to interact. I actually was going over some of the back records of the past 9 years, and I was looking at what we call the journey of participants in the Looking Back into the Future program. We've seen teachers who came to the conference, found some new knowledge, went back to their school, got inspired, started up Black community clubs to educate and empower Black students. We've seen students who didn't even know what they're doing or what they want to pick up as a career, but by participating in the conference and getting to meet Shannon, they got inspired within the Black community and picked up even careers within history as well too. So let us talk about this conference because I know it's one of the major offerings for looking back to the future. And one of the things you spoke a little bit earlier, for those who are just joining, Shannon highlighted a little bit about this earlier. But tell us, 2024, the ninth annual Looking Back into the Future conference. What should we be looking forward to?
Yeah, so much of the same for past years. We always want to highlight the past and history and always take a look back at things, but also highlight, where we are in the future and where we're going. So we'll have amazing speakers that we'll be announcing in the next few weeks who are taking part. We have the every Black History Month, Canada Post puts out their Black History Month stamp. So we'll have an unveiling of that stamp this year. I'm not sure if it's been announced. I think it has, but I won't announce it just in case it hasn't. Of the stamp, and we'll be looking at that and entertainment and just giving young people and individuals the opportunity to showcase their gifts and their talents for the audience. And of course, vendors. We want to always support local Black vendors in the community because there are so many wonderful businesses, and it's not always easy if you don't have a storefront or what have you to sell your product. So just giving that opportunity, in some small way to some business owners, and just a time of connection and fellowship and networking and just having a good afternoon of learning and just entertainment and having fun and really highlighting Black excellence, Black history, Black futures, as you mentioned earlier, and highlighting it all and just having a wonderful afternoon about that. So that will take place on Saturday, February the 24th. More details to follow in terms of location. And again, we'll be announcing the speakers very soon. A wonderful event and really looking forward to it. It still blows my mind that we're at number 9 and celebrating the 10th year
Yes.
next year, 2025. But
Yes. Yes.
really excited for it on Saturday, February the 24th.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you are live or you're watching this afterwards, there's a link on the Looking Back to the Future Instagram handle, which you're using for this right now. Or anyway you see Looking Back into the Future, or you can just go to www.lookingbackintothefuture.ca. You will see a link to start registering for 2024. We're going to be doing a call for the first few people to register this year so that they can be able to get some gifts. So double up, you're going to get some prizes. The first 10 people to register this year are going to be getting prizes. So if you're here, I would recommend you go do that if you can, and make sure you attend because you get the gift at the event itself. So I want to thank every one of you for taking the time to join us. We don't want to take too long, over 30 minutes. Obviously, there's a lot I know Shannon can share. But the main messages, as I said, 3 key messages today is that there's a whole new strategic revamp of the Looking Back to the Future. Not only the conference, as Shannon's saying, but there's a whole lot planned for this year. We have the conference to kick us off in February. And then we have a whole bunch of movie screening. We have networking. We have relationship building. We have mentorship program if you have young people or if you're even older and you're looking for somebody to encourage you, to motivate you. One of the things I know Looking Back has been able to do is to be able to incorporate cultural and historical content into whatever you're learning. So whatever kind of mentorship you're looking for, we have the opportunity to be able to do that with you, both in corporate world, in private life, and in the industry in general. Looking back to the future, we definitely give you the opportunity to network. Now, as we begin to share people's stories and journeys as they participate within the Looking Back to the Future ecosystem, we can only see that the future gets better. So thank you for taking time. Thank you, Esther. If you have questions, if you want to ask kind of questions, definitely you have our Instagram. You know that she's always around to send out a DM. And as we said, if you go into the looking back into the future.ca, you will see how to contact Channon there as well. Sign up to the newsletter. You hear directly from Channon as she brings up more stuff. Tons of speaking engagement already booked up for this year, so probably you'll be able to catch Channon up somewhere within the community. So thank you all for hanging with us. Yes, you can see, as I told you, she's not just just a speaker, she's also a mother. So
Say hi, everyone.
every one of you for joining.
Just say hi. Say hi. I'll tell you after. Just say hi.
Gertie.
So this is the little one.
Just right about
Good timing.
you. And so stay tuned for more.
Where's Daddy?
And Shannon, we'll see you in a bit. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, everyone. We appreciate you joining. Thank you. And look forward to seeing you at the 9th annual conference.
Yes.
Saturday, February the 24th in Ajax. More details to be released soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Daddy?
Bye.
Where's Daddy?
Here, Courtney. Hi.
Where's